What's going on, everybody? My name is Stefan Coons, and I am the host of the Everyday Pursuit podcast. Welcome. Man, oh man, is it a crazy start to the year. It's actually like the first couple weeks were a little bit slower. I will say I feel like it's going to get busier. I hope it's going to get busier. I'm really excited for 2023 for so many reasons. Last year was just a cluster of a year. And it was a great year. But I just did so many things like remodeling on my house, and I grew the business, and like I'm tired. I am exhausted from last year, but I'm really proud of everything that we've done as a team. And the reason I even bring that up is because I part of me, right, being young, I just turned 32 in December. So being relatively young, I think I lack patience. What do you know? Probably not a surprise, right? Millennials and the new generation, right? We kind of get this like bad vibe of like, oh, well, you guys are so impatient and you want instant gratification, all those things. Yeah. Okay, cool. But I don't think everybody's like that. And one thing that's actually helped me a lot is working out and, you know, AKA bodybuilding, building a physique. I've been lifting for 17 years. I started when I was like 14 or 15 years old, and I've basically been doing it ever since. Pretty consistently for the most part, something fitness related. No, the whole 17 years, I wasn't trying to bodybuild, or I would be way bigger and way more jacked. I did a lot of different things within fitness, but I've been exercising and lifting weights for a very, very long time. And so it's kind of like put a time horizon on like, wow, great things take time. All the great physiques you see, unless they take steroids and take performance enhancing drugs, even those take still a lot of hard work. It's not just a magic pill. We realize that like, it's going to take a long time to build a great physique. And so it's shown me that like, wow, 1 year when you're putting in a lot of work seems forever. Like last year seemed like 5 years, 100% for me in business. And so it's when you're in there, when you're in the grind, you're like, man, I've been doing this for so long. And it's really easy to get like super impatient. But something you have to realize is a year is not a very long time in business. A year is not a long time in the gym. And I've seen people get super like mentally defeated because they think that they're supposed to have a sick physique in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Well, let me tell you something. I would say the minimum amount of time that it's going to take to have an amazing physique is 10 years. Now, there's exceptions. I'm talking about just like a regular person that goes to the gym. If you're a competitive athlete, that's different. If you are single and you don't care about having a social life, you could probably get jacked in a few years and that's all you do, and you don't drink and you don't do drugs and you eat super clean. But for most people that are going to have some drinks on the weekend and they're going to enjoy a holiday and like just kind of average people, I think you guys can get a great physique. It's just going to take a long time, right? And then beyond that, like even if you're perfect, it still takes a lot of repetitions, right? You see these guys, I think there was a guy that's like, I don't know, a million rep man or something on Instagram. He's like 50 years old, but he's been lifting since he's like 15. So he's like, all my muscles have like a million reps on them, which is probably true. And so he looks great. And you could just tell like the way he's sculpted and his body, and he's all natural, but he's been lifting for so long that it makes like a huge, huge, huge difference in the way he looks and performs and his definition, and like, it's crazy. So the reason I'm telling you guys this too is because I see it as a coach. I see so many people that are just impatient, and they look on Instagram. And let me tell you something about social media. Social media uses the best angles, the best lighting, the post-workout pump, the flex. There are some accounts that are like, hey, this is how I really look in real life when I'm not putting my shorts, you know, up to the bottom of my nipples, ladies, and tucking in my whole stomach and doing these waist hugger shorts. And like, you know, like this is what I actually look like. Or even for guys, they're like, oh, I'm like flexing from this side so my obliques show. Yeah, that's cool. I've done that too, right? It's social media. But at the same time, we look at that and we're like, oh, I want to get ripped, because what happens is a guy goes, hey, I looked like this, but then I looked like this in 3 years. Yeah, but when he started in that picture, he already had 7 years of training behind him, and then he just kind of let himself go and got a little chubby. So you think he's starting from ground zero. He's been lifting for 7 years. So he's already built the habits and the dedication and the form and the, you know, muscle memory. I'm doing air quotes. all those things play a role, right? His body, how quick it's going to adapt, how ready his cardiovascular system is, his other energy systems. Because when you see somebody that's like, for the most part, if you see somebody that's like super fit, and then they're showing a before picture, most of those people have been still working out or athletes their whole life. Like I even have before pictures where I don't look that great, and then I look super shredded and a lot bigger after. I was still in good shape in that first picture. I just had a higher body fat percentage. Like, and I was still training hard. It just doesn't look like that, right? Now, I still know the tools and tricks to be able to like cut the body fat down and grow certain parts of my muscles. So that is still a transformation, and it's still super valuable for myself and for me as a coach. But you have to realize that it's going to take a long time. Like their year transformation is only because they already had 7 years behind them. You get what I'm saying? Now, there are some people that make a great transformation. And one thing that I've seen is heavier people making really good transformations. Now, if you're like really obese and you have a lot of weight to lose, sometimes it can be hard to be like, get to the point where you're shredded or ripped because you have excess skin, and you know, like the loose skin. But I have seen people that are just like a bigger guy. Like for example, I got this buddy that I was in the Air Force with. He's like 6'8". Okay. He's like a giant, like 245 pounds, which isn't super heavy for 6'8", but he was thicker. He was a thick dude. He didn't really have like, he wasn't fat, but he definitely had like a belly, you know, like didn't have muscle definition, but he carried so much weight. He's 245 pounds. So then he kind of like body recomped over like a 3 or 4 year period. And he ended up being like, I think like 215. So he lost like, what is that? 25 pounds or 35 pounds. And, well, I guess, yeah, I think 30 pounds. And the only difference though, with the body recomp is like, he carried all that extra weight for so long that like I mean, like if he would have just dropped the weight, he maybe would have been like 200. But what happened is he ended up carrying that weight around for so long that he built muscle. I mean, imagine, right? I'm 175 to 80 pounds. If I put in a 30-pound weighted vest evenly distributed through my body, and I just did my normal daily functions and all my workouts and everything, and then I could take it off, I would be so much more jacked because all those muscles had to carry around that extra weight. And you see that a lot with weight loss clients and weight loss people. They lose weight and they have like really good legs or like a huge muscular back or, you know, like huge muscular, nice arms. And so unless you're that person, which you might be, but unless you're that person, you can't expect like a drastic transformation. That's number one. Number two is you have to realize that a lot of the people that you're admiring have been training for a very long time. And it's not just random training too. A lot of the people that you've seen have been on some type of structure very consistently for a very long time without gaps. A lot of you guys have gaps in your training. And I know this because I train people all the time that are like, yeah, I'll be good for like 3 or 4 months. And then like, I won't work out for 3 or 4 months. And then like, I'll do a month and then I won't train for 2 months and blah, blah, blah. And so when you look at it, maybe they only worked out half the year, right? And during those 6 months they were working out, it wasn't super structured. They weren't counting sets and reps and volume. There was not a lot of progressive overload. So it was just kind of honestly all over the place. So let's just say that equates to the same as 3 months for somebody else because it just was random. That means every year you're training 3 effective months and the other person's training 1 year, 12 months of effective training. So, you know, I see that too. People are like, well, I've been training for 5, 6 years. I don't care how long you've been training. You've been training correctly because the length of you training means nothing. How you train during a time means everything. So you have to understand that like your physique is based around, sure, yeah, how many years you've been training. But like, what if you were training wrong for 10 years? What if you were training under your volume for 10 years? What if you were like sporadically changing training for 20 years? Then you can use the badge of honor. I've been training for 20 years. I don't care. Because there's people out there that have been training smart, intelligently, and more consistently than you for 3 years that look and perform better than you. So I don't want you to think that time's the perfect, like the only thing, but you have to also be pretty realistic. Like I had a kid at 19 years old. So I wasn't going to spend every single waking second in the gym, and he's 12 now. Like, yeah, I can work out basically as much as I want now, but for the first 6, 7 years of his life, I was limited. I had to get my workouts in the morning and they were quicker and I couldn't just go to the gym again If you're a single dude and you have no kids and you're single, or you have a spouse, but you don't have children, more power to you. You can probably go to the gym as much as you want and you don't have limitations. But if you have kids or puppies or dogs or whatever, that you have to be at home, it is much more challenging, much more challenging. And so you have to look at the realistic thing of like, number one, am I going to be able to do this and have time, right? And number two, like, what does my lifestyle look like outside of training? Because nutrition plays a huge role, right? If you said in 2023, I'm not going to cheat at all. I'm literally just going to eat meats, like paleo, like meats, nuts, fruits, vegetables, water, no alcohol, no soda, no sweets. Dude, you would be insane by the end of the year, like insane. But basically nobody does that. And I don't want to do that. And I don't recommend you do that because your life's going to suck. Like, I'm just saying, like, if you do nothing, like, you're not going to enjoy any foods you want. You're going to miss out on a lot of events because food is not just energy, it's cultural and social. And if you drink, then you like drinking. And I believe in more of a balanced thing. So guys, I think that the ultimate story to this episode is you need to just be more patient about like how long it's going to take to build a physique. And you also need to realize like how long it's going to take you to build a good physique. If you're willing to be extremely, extremely dedicated, I'll give you some tangible years. I would say like within 3 years, you could build like if you are just starting, within 3 years, you could build a sick physique. I've seen it happen. For most people, it's like 8+ years. For the guys you see on the front of fitness magazines, it's like 10+ years, maybe 15. Most of them. Like most of those guys have been training their whole life and they're in their late 20s or early 30s. So about 15 years-ish. So I can tell you too, that when I brought my best package, I was like, what, 28? So that was like 13 years of lifting when I had like probably the best physique. And when I was doing fitness modeling. And that was at least since 2010, very consistent training. So you're talking about like, I guess, yeah. So I guess that was probably like 7 years of very consistent training behind that physique, but 13 total, right? 7 years of like some structure and actually programming my stuff and keeping track of it and making healthier choices, cutting back on alcohol, not eating as much bad food, watching my carbs, kind of starting to track my macros. So that's everything else, right? So the training is one aspect and you got to be patient, but you also have to be patient with nutrition. And this is kind of the last thing I'll leave you on. Nutrition is going to be the biggest portion, one of the biggest portions in creating a great physique for most people. And I think that is probably most people's biggest downfall. They're not willing to do something really crazy like be on paleo for a year or cut out all the alcohol or do these things. And so the goal that they could accomplish in 3 years takes them 10. And this would be the only thing that I would advise against is if you're okay with that, if you're like, hey, it's going to take me 10 years. I want the abs. I want the whole shredded back. I want everything. It's going to take me a very long time. And you're okay with that. And you've like really emotionally bought into that. You're fine. Like just keep putting in the work. Just keep putting in the work, chip away. You can live your life. You can go have some beers with your friends. You can eat, whatever. But for most people, they actually end up giving up on that dream because it takes so long. Like 10 years is a long ass time. And so I personally, like probably a few years in, I stopped looking so far ahead. I was just like, I like working out. I'm going to work out. And I hope that by working out intelligently, like I get a good physique. And I wasn't really tied to that goal. And then I ended up getting a pretty good physique, just because I focused on the training and the thing that pushed the needle forward. So I will say that you have to watch out how long it's going to take you and if you're going to give up. Like I see it all the time. People will train for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and then they become really inconsistent. Why? Because building muscle and creating a physique takes forever. Like you can lose 20 pounds in 3 months. Do you know how hard it is to build muscle, like good lean muscle once you've been training for over 5, 6, 7 years? It is so hard to do naturally, except if you're the 0.01% of genetic freaks. It is extremely hard, especially if you want to stay shredded, right? Which, like I said, social media makes it look like that. Like, oh, you could just stay shredded all year and then just progressively get stronger and bigger. No, for normal people like us, That's not how it works. For people that don't take performance enhancing drugs, that's not how it works. It's not just this linear thing where you just get bigger and stronger and bigger and stronger and bigger and stronger. It's called law of diminishing returns. You eventually get to the point where you're kind of plateaued. And you might be able to break past that plateau, but it's not like, oh, I broke past it and I'll just keep making progress for a whole year. Like generally, even if you are making progress in some area, you're not making progress in all of them. Like you might get progressively stronger each month, but that doesn't also mean you're getting bigger and also mean you're getting more shredded. Like they're separate things. And I think people just think, oh, if I train for this long, I'll just be big and strong and shredded. No, they're different phases. And even the phase I'm in right now, I'm realizing that I'm 175-ish. I want to get to 190 or 195, probably 190, really, really bad. For me to gain 15 pounds and not have like a freaking belly and be chubby, I'm going to have to probably do a 1 year bulk. Sounds really aggressive, but I'm going to have to like not be sub 10% body fat for a year. I'm going to have to like basically lose my abs for a whole year and just work on my strength and getting a little bigger and a little stronger. And from somebody that's had abs for like 6 or 7 or 8 years, it's very hard to just be like, oh, I'm okay with that. But I realize that I have to be patient. I have to like just say, this is my goal. And I just realize it's going to take longer. It's okay. I'm okay with it. And so it's the emotional acceptance that's probably the most important part. I think a lot of you guys are failing, and that's probably why you fail at creating great physique. Like you haven't been like, okay, I'm going to shake the hand. That's a deal. I'll put in 10 years. You're just like, I'll work hard, but if I'm not getting my results, I'm going to stop. No, it's going to take a long time, right? I have clients that do a bulk. They have abs. They start to lose them and they start questioning, hey, this isn't working, man. I don't know. I can't do it. I'm like, nah, dude, trust the process. Stick with it. Like that's how you build the great physique. And if you've been lifting for 5 or 6 years, your little 2 or 3 month bulk probably isn't going to do it. I mean, maybe you'll gain a pound or 2, maybe 3 pounds, maybe 5. But at the same time, like, was that worth being what you consider chubby for 3 months? No, like if I'm doing a bulk, man, I am going to prioritize getting as big and strong as I can. That way, and I already did another episode on this, like you don't have to do another bulk. Like this will probably be my last bulk for a very, very, very long time if I can get to 190. Like that's as heavy as I want to be. And I was already at like a maintenance weight for 7 or 8 years. So this time I might be at 190 for a decade, right? And so yes, it's 1 year of being a little bit bigger, but I'm also getting stronger and faster. And then when I lean back down, I get to perform better, bigger, faster, stronger at a less weight. So, you know, and more shredded. That's the idea of doing a cut and bulk, by the way, if you don't know, is like each time you do it, you're still going to end up being lean and shredded. You're just like a bigger version of the lean shredded person. And when you're only 175 pounds, although I look pretty good, I'm not that big. Like I'm not a big guy. I'm not a huge guy. I'm 5'10", like 180-ish. Okay. I'm not small, but I'm not big. If I'm 190, then I'll be walking around looking freaking jacked. And that's kind of the whole point. But anyways, guys, I hope this gives you just some perspective of like how long it's going to take and just some mental frameworks. Like you having that conversation with yourself, realizing like, okay, maybe I'm not as tied into this goal as I want. And I see this with people that compete, you know, they're like, I really want to compete. And I see their physique and I'm like, you're 7 years away from competing. They're like, no, dude, I was thinking about competing in 2 years. I'm like, dude, you literally have a dad bod. Like you building like pecs and a back and all that. If you're not going to take Tren and D-ball and all these performance enhancing drugs and test, it's going to take you 7 years. I'm telling you right now. And they're like, no, it won't. Yes, it will. And so you see this, you see these guys every day, you're standing at them and you're putting a lot of effort in the gym and you think just like everything else that it's going to just happen like that. It doesn't. So you need to understand it's going to take a long time. You got to put in the work. But if you can have that conversation with yourself, if you can emotionally commit and be okay with it, I think you're going to be fine. I think you actually could create an awesome physique. But nobody that I go to the gym with has been lifting for 3 or 4 years and churns heads. Just saying, unless you're a genetic freak, nobody's turning heads. Not that you can't have a great transformation, but you're probably not going to be doing anything impressive in the first couple of years, especially if you're first starting out. And that shouldn't be your goal. Your goal should be to lose the weight, to feel more confident, to have more energy, to build momentum. So if you guys found this episode helpful, please do me a favor. Go ahead and pause the episode right now. Or if you've been watching us and leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this at, or YouTube. Comment, let me know if you have any questions. And then I also want you guys to share this. So screenshot it, text the episode link to a friend. Find us on Instagram at pursuit_hp.com. You can follow us, shoot us a message. And I would love to help you come up with a game plan too of like, hey, this is where I want to be in a few years. What do I have to do? Because that's actually, for a lot of our clients, we work with them several years. So we know at the beginning, like, okay, well, they're going to work with us a minimum of 1 year. And to a lot of them, they're like, okay, that makes sense. Some online trainers like, work with me for a month. I'm like, good luck getting anything significantly accomplished in a month. It's a great start, but I want to work with the client for a few years if I can, because that's where we start to see those like actual huge transformations where they're like, I'm way stronger, I'm way more cut, I feel better, I have the knowledge, and I can go do it on myself and or on my own, right? So I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate all the support. I think this is, I don't know what episode number this is going to be. I think it's like 40 something. We're almost at 50 episodes. Super excited. We've been pumping these out for you. If you have any specific questions or, about this episode, you can message me on Facebook. You can hit me up on Instagram at the Pursuit Instagram. Or if you have any episode requests, drop them, put them on social media, leave them on a comment. I would love to do an episode that you feel like could be beneficial. Like I said, we do mindset, supplementation, training, really like anything that you can think of with your health and fitness journey. I will do an episode on. I'll bring Coach Bryce, Coach Riley, Coach Mike on here. We'll chat about it and get your episode out. So I really appreciate it. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon.